Absolutely. Welcome everybody to our webinar that is hosted by IBASA and EPI. Our topic for today is how we as professionals can be, oops, sorry, I've just completely lost my space here. Where are we, Christoph? I think I'm already in our next, my brain is like in the next webinar. Professionalism of business advice.
Yeah. So
what should practitioners expect next, and how do we as practitioners be organized? And we have three awesome panelists who will help us through that discussion. Koenie, Slabbert, you want to introduce yourself so you can switch on your video and say hi to everybody?
Hi, everyone. My name is Koenie Slabbert. I'm the Acting Enterprise Executive Development Officer at Seda. And it's nice to meet on this platform and to share ideas and discussions with you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Koenie. Welcome. And Nishi Singh, please greet us all the way from KZN.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. And good morning to the panelists as well and the organizers. I'm very excited and happy to be on board this morning, and it's a discussion topic that is very close to my heart. So I'm looking forward to some robust discussions taking place. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Nishi. And Carl Lotter, would you like to say hi to our viewers?
We're trying to get Carl's video on and his sound off. Is still off. So Carl, if you can unmute and start your video. Oh, I see Carl is now signed in twice, so maybe there's some issue there on Carl's side.
Oh.
Maybe let's see how we're going to bring him in to speak later on.
Yes, exactly. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Well, I think let's get started off by our first poll to really let's delve into today's topic. And I think my colleague Christoph, will you run that first poll? It's a nice way for us to get ready for what we're going to do today.
Yeah, thanks, Tobeka. So the question here is, should business advising be regulated? This is kind of firmly in the space of what the theme is about today, is ensuring quality in service delivery, and to what degree regulation is important there. So the first option there, yes, government should create and implement a framework and also run a registry. The second, the government is still creating the framework, but there's an independent agency that actually does the implementation. And the third option there is government creates a framework, but it relies on professional bodies to implement the framework. And then lastly, self-regulation by professional bodies. In other words, professional bodies makes the rules, not government. Those are all yes. Should there be a regulation? Yes, it's either government on its own, government working with an independent agency, government working with professional bodies, or professional bodies doing self-regulation. So those are the first four options that you can vote on. And then the last two are no, but membership of professional bodies should be recommended. And lastly, no, it should be left over to the market forces to determine how quality is delivered. So you may have an opinion, strong or not, on that. If you are on Facebook, you can just type your answer there in the comments, and we'll take that into account too. But we've got quite a few of us voting there. If you're looking for the voting for the poll window on your screen and it's hidden behind another window, just page through the windows. If you're on a cell phone or mobile device, you may have to swipe once or twice to get to the poll frame. But otherwise, sometimes on your desktop it sits hidden. It should just pop up on your screen otherwise. So we've got quite a few people voting there. By the way, we used the Q&A button. If you want to post a question or something that we need to discuss, please use the Q&A for that, the Q&A button. Otherwise, the comments button you can click just for conversation and for sharing ideas and so on. So
great. Yeah, we have about 63% that's voting at the moment. I hope some people can quickly just say at least about 70% will be good. But it looks like 40% of the room believes yes, self-regulation by professional bodies to create and implement a framework for membership, grading, and quality assurance. Okay.
So there are
That's pretty nice.
still one or two maybe wanting to vote. We're going to close the poll now. So going. If you haven't voted, please make your decision very soon. And then we can end the poll and we can share the result with everyone. So that is quite interesting to me. 39% say that yes, there should be regulation, but it should be self-regulation by professional bodies. In other words, government should not be making the rules, it should be the professional bodies. And then second came, yes, government should, and it should then rely on professional bodies to do the implementation. Very few thought that government should actually be doing all of it, and a few thought that government should be doing it with an independent agency. And then there's quite a few that's actually say 16%. That's quite interesting. That says there should be no regulation, but the professional body should, membership of a professional body should be advisable. And then the minority, only 2 people actually that said no, it's impossible to regulate a profession such as business advising.
That's interesting. Thank you, Christoph. And I think that kind of prepares us also for Koenie Slabbert to kind of talk on this point with us all. As you know, he is an acting executive manager at the Enterprise Development Division at Seda. He is also involved in the small business promotion field. And he's been doing this for 2 decades, and he is based obviously in Limpopo. Love Limpopo, beautiful place. And really, I look forward to, and we all look forward to hearing from you, Dr. Slabbert, your views and your thoughts on this discussion of your paper of the BAS. Thank you, welcome.
Thanks, Tobeka. Once again, good day to everyone. I think it's quite interesting to note what most of the respondents have responded to on the questionnaire. Safe to say that, you know, our experience is that when a process or a service is not regulated, we find that there's a number of challenges. I mean, we've been in this industry within Seda for quite a while, about 17 years, if people may remember. Prior to that, myself, I was an industrial advisor with the National Manufacturing Advisory Centers based in Limpopo. But prior to that, I don't want to give away my age, but I was process engineer for Cobra Water Tech. And I walked through the ranks and so on. But eventually, when I had a program and a project that I was dealing with on productivity improvement. And I had a number of SMMEs that I was working with. When I realized the shortcomings that SMMEs have, I then decided, I think, you know, instead of sitting in an office working out processes all by myself, you know, for 3, 4, 5 months, and then presenting it to my bosses and discussing over that, publishing it, and so on and so on. I'd better serve the people at the bottom who are the entrepreneurs who are struggling, and that is how I came to be in this profession. But yes, throughout the years, we've realized that there are people who are necessity-driven. You know, those people who do things because they don't have another choice. They do it because simply, how can I put it? They need to put food on the table. It's not that they are driven by passion or you know, there's an opportunity for them to really contribute something significant to society or to the economy or whatever. And then you find those people that are opportunity driven, that identify an opportunity, and out of the identification of an opportunity, and they realize what expertise they have and they want to share. But over and above that, what is also important is they start to realize, to say, hey, this industry is so huge, I need to share, but I need to learn. I can't believe that I'm the expert of everything. I need to learn from other people. And this is where I believe that, and as an organization within Seda, we believe that business development services needs to be regulated, and the business advisory services in particular needs to be regulated. We need it to be regulated because there are unscrupulous people out there. I mean, over the years, I've done projects where you request a service provider to do a business plan, and you would realize that there are information in that business plan that don't belong there. Why? Because people have got templates, and you know, when they rush, they've got a number of projects they are trying to run, and because they, you know, they've got to put food on the table as well, they would then take a project on 2 or 3 projects, and they take the template, they populate the template with the request from the client, but they don't go through the project to understand and see and give the relevant information the way it is needed. And that is where we have the problem. Because when they do that, I mean, I've seen in the past, and people might crucify me for this, where you request somebody to do a business plan for a manufacturing process. And you find in that there's things that talk about chemicals, there's things that talk about things that don't belong in that type of process where the business plan is meant for. So how best do we then make sure that at the end of the day, this process is living up to the profession in which it is supposed to be? How do we then ensure that when people are actually dealing with these kind of things, they ensure that that process is run properly? When you look, for example, if you look on the slide, you would see that there's training that needs to be done. Now, in training, when we train, or a person who is a service provider gets trained, the training doesn't just end after the processes and the session that he or she has attended, but it is a lifelong training where people learn from everyone around them. They learn from their clients, they learn from their colleagues, they learn from mentors, they learn from everyone else. They learn from other institutions. So people need to look at that. But what's most important is that we need to regulate and control the quality of this type of service that we do. And how do we control the quality of the service that we do? Because we need to belong to a body where there is a control, a body that will take us and hold us accountable to ensure at the end of the day that when we do certain things, and if things are not presented the way they should be, we must be held accountable. And unless we have a process where we are going to control this, we are setting ourselves up for putting our clients at risk and ensuring at the end of the day that some of the clients, remember that some clients depend so much on this type of service that they receive from the service provider. They don't question it. They don't even go through it to understand what is it that this individual has given me. They believe everything in that process that was given, and they would present that, not going through it and understanding and saying, hold on, there's something wrong here. I don't agree with this. I don't agree with that. And I need this to be reviewed and to be discussed with me so that I can give my input. But simply because people sometimes get too caught up in their own little environments of what they need to deliver and what they need to do at the end of the day, we find that these things surely put people in a position where they can actually expose themselves. So we believe that we need to create an environment where there are standards. Within the standards, the quality gets monitored. People then are trained, they are coached. The coaches need to be mentored as well. So, within the 4 quadrants of the focus areas of where we need to deal with, we understand that within the membership, there's the membership benefit for professional associations. There's a designation granting associations. but also there's the certification bodies. And these certification bodies, they will focus on designations and on as products, as well as on a few membership services, but they will also be certified to understand and deliver the service that they need to deliver. Then we have the professional regulatory bodies. The professional regulatory bodies exist because we need to promote and protect the public, and to protect the public so that the public should not be, how can I say, done in by the fly-by-nights that we normally get in our day-to-day profession. Hence, we deal with this, and we recommend that we should look at the bodies and then come up with standards, and so much so that we are recommending the standard of 170200 that will regulate. It's a standard standard that regulates this process. We within Seda, we are in a process currently where we submitted to SABS our profile and our criteria on the regulation and the standard that needs to be implemented to regulate the business advisory services at a national level. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much for that. And I think let's now just bring our attention to a question we're going to add in the chat to kind of help us through this conversation on really what are the biggest hurdles preventing improvement in the capacity of business support for practitioners to have a better impact with the small business clients? Christoph, do you want to take us through that? And we can just share.
Yeah, so this is quite an important question. So thanks, Koenie, there for it's a difficult task to kind of give input on something that we're all really passionate about and that we need to see movement on, you know, sort of so that the small business clients that we're serving are the ultimate beneficiaries, and that they can, especially now in these times that they are under such strain, you know, sort of when we look at the statistics of stress and strain and failure, then clearly our task is even more so now. And we must thank institutions like Seda and the others that are involved in this initiative to improve the quality of service delivery. So clearly some of those suggestions all of us may not agree with, you know, sort of, but I think we've moved forward quite a bit in terms of when this discussion started off to come to some common ground around what the role of professional bodies are, what the role of regulations may be, how education and training specifically, how we can capacitate ourselves also to build our own. And here we are now today in a CPD event, you know, sort of we're building our own capacity to be better. So, but what are the hurdles, in your view, that are preventing us from, as a community, as a market, as a profession, delivering on increasing the impact of small businesses? So we're the practitioners out there supporting people. What are the hurdles preventing us from doing so, in your opinion? So there, Hilton is starting off the discussion about training. There are only 2 training providers that are actually providing training in this field. So training, a hurdle is that we're not getting enough training, I think is what Hilton is referring to. Please use the text chat there to add your view on this. There's an opportunity for us to share our views and shape the thinking here. Okay, so Katlego says they can barely hear. I'm not sure if that's a common issue. Please comment more that we know that we can address the issues around sound. Maybe it's just your microphone or your speaker that has to be turned up, Katlego. Otherwise, if there's anyone else with a similar problem, just comment here that we know that we can address it. But what in your opinion are these big hurdles preventing us to improve the capacity of business support practitioners? Lack of collaboration and reference, says Albert.
Brennan also has a question in the Q&A section as well.
Okay, so Brennan has posted in the Q&A. Why recommend all bodies to have same status when there are obviously different levels of BAs practitioners. Okay, so levels, I think Nishi Nishi, I think you are going to cover that in terms of your input, in terms of different levels of BDS practitioners and competencies needed for that. So that we will be addressing that. Lynn is saying professional bodies should be visible to audiences that be perhaps other than BDS practitioners too. So, you know, sort of the standing of the professional body should be recognized in the marketplace by the users, the clients, and the agencies that are using or serving those clients. Terence says, what about educating the consumer of business advice? Exactly that point, you know, sort of, I think you spot on there, Terence, you know, sort of that if the consumer is demanding that someone is a member of a professional body, then, you know, they will, the providers, practitioners will. Visibility to SMMEs, and the SMMEs are the ones that are buying the service ultimately, even if it's through an agency or an ESD program. So please keep your comments coming there. We can refer back later on in the conversation around to the chat too. And if you're on Facebook, there are not a huge amount of people on Facebook, about 10 or so, but we are a full room here in Zoom, 110 people about. So it is really, you know, we are here together as a good representation of the community of practitioners, and we can make use of this opportunity to share our ideas too. So we'll keep monitoring, Tobeka. We can keep monitoring the comments there. And just as a reminder, if you have a question that you want us to discuss, put it in the Q&A to make sure that we notice that.
Wonderful, great, thank you. And now just to introduce our next panelist, Singh. She will share her views on the importance of applying relevant competencies framework in the development of capacity of professional business advice practitioners. She's turnaround specialist and believes in rescuing practitioners and she's also the regional chairperson of the Institute of Business Advice of Southern Africa, IBASA, in KZN. Nishi, please welcome, and it's all to you now.
Thank you very much, Tobeka. Koenie has set a very high standard, especially with his time and his content, so I'm going to do my best here. It's great seeing such a lot of familiar faces in the room this morning, and so that's lovely to know. I'm going to delve right into it because I really want to maximize the amount of time that I have been allocated. When you think about advice, so essentially all of us around the table here, through different functions, whether it's advisor, consultant, mentor, coach, etc., we essentially selling advice. And we are selling value. And the reason, I think, if I had to just sum it up in one sentence, why professionalize the industry is because that value is rather intrinsic. You cannot measure it as compared to a product. You walk into a store, you buy a product, and the value that you are getting is visible to the naked eye. You know what you're getting, you test its functionality, etc. However, when you're selling your advice, the value is rather intrinsic and it's not immediately recognizable, and in some instances not even quantifiable. And so that is a very important topic that is being covered here this morning, and one that I'm very privileged to be a part of. I'm going to get right into it. The other thing is, I think we can all agree to a larger or lesser degree that the designation consultant or advisor hasn't enjoyed a very good rep in the industry over the years. We generally think of that person as somebody who's either just attended or graduated with a business degree or course or diploma or worked for a number of years and then decided to change careers and become an advisor. The other element to it is that the market of SMMEs are huge in South Africa and globally as well. And advisory support, whether through mentorship, coaching, or business advisory, has been shown to be directly linked to their potential for success and sustainability. And hence, it's an industry that needs to be regulated so that quality standards can apply. I thought as a starting point, let's look at what are the elements of a relevant competency framework. The first one, of course, would be your competencies, whether academic or theoretical, what it is that you bring with you from that perspective. Then the recognition of your prior learning or experience, which is a very important component as well, because the one without the other don't work as effectively as they would together. Your CPD, and focus on the word continuous. This is your continuous professional development. If you look at it, the landscape of business is very dynamic. There's legislation, new ones coming in, current ones being amended, new trends coming by. Currently, globally, we are doing virtually everything online, etc. So to remain relevant with the current landscape and to adequately address the needs of your clients, you need to be continuously developing yourself. And then bringing it all together would be a quality assurance system. The way I like looking at it is you are putting a roof on the house. So you're bringing all these different elements together and you're saying, let's monitor it, let's measure it as it is maintained going forward. Having that as a backdrop then, I wanted to just delve a little more closely into IBASA's competency framework. It's quite comprehensive, as you can see, but it's built around 3 core elements. The first one is your functional element. And there it looks at what is it that you actually do? What defines your advice or your service, be it business rescue, business facilitation, coaching, mentoring, etc. And that is very important because each one of them bring a different angle of advice to the client. The second one is your foundational. And that is really, as I covered in the previous slide, your skills, your knowledge, and the values that you bring with you that undergird the quality of the advice that you will be providing. And then finally, that leads up to your professional competence, which is the grading system that you will be graded according to based on the extent of your functional and foundational competency. And I'm going to be covering that in the final slide. Let's look at what were the objectives around compiling this competency framework. Again, it's quite vast and comprehensive, but I wanted to just hone in on 3 particular ones. The first one being to be an integral part of the transformation process through the development of professional business advisors and being recognized as a professional body to create a benchmark in the industry, to create and set up a standard that all advisors can ascribe to. The second one is to establish a high level of professionalism for business advisors so that we can change the reputation out there. We can also provide more peace of mind to clients who definitely do need this sort of input and support to develop and grow themselves to be successful at what they do. And then to set industry standards for business advisors. There's a lot that's been covered by the first speaker, a lot that's been covered under the chat about the need for us to have industry standards that regulate us as an advisory industry. And I think that is very important, and it is well encompassed and covered here under the objectives of IBASA's competency framework. And then finally, we go to the grading system. So having spoken about all the elements that should be included in compiling and in using a competency framework, you then get to a grading system where you find, based on all of that skill, knowledge, expertise, qualifications, etc., that you have, you will be slotted into a specific grading here. And what's nice about this is 2 things. Firstly, it gives the client sort of an idea of the extent and the level of your expertise and what value it is that you're bringing. And then for you as an advisor, it helps you set your goals and your milestones and how you want to progress and develop in the field of business advisory. So whether you're starting out as a student doing a business management course, business advisory course, all the way up to being a certified business advisor. And again, here's where CPD comes in. Even if you reach the top of the food chain, to coin it as a phrase, What is very important is that once you've attained that level of grading, you still need to make sure that you are remaining relevant in your space. You cannot get it and set up into the sunset and think that your advice today is still going to be relevant in 5 to 10 years from now. You need to be able to ensure to maintain your level and your grading, that you are actually continuously developing yourself. And Tobeka has very graciously and kindly given me a nice tinker that my time is up. I could talk the whole day about it, but I'm going to leave it there now. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. No problem. Thank you so much, Nishi. There's a lot there for us to really think about. Sorry, I think my face is half cut off here. I tell you, technology reminds us what we look like all the time. And I think really, let's quickly go into our next, if you can run our next poll to kind of delve a little more into what Nishi shared with us here, is really about the business advising competency framework that IBASA developed, applicable to your practical situation of supporting businesses. Please select the appropriate options below, which is yes, it is absolutely applicable. Yes, it is applicable to a fair degree. Yes, it is somewhat applicable, and no, it is not applicable to my own situation. And lastly, no, it does not provide an appropriate national framework. And Christoph, any thoughts around that before we move on?
Yeah, so a lot of the people in the room here are IBASA members and have gone through the process of being accredited by IBASA already, or being graded. So if you didn't know it, you were graded to be assigned a designation. So I think that's quite an important part of understanding the competencies framework, is that there are different grades here too, but without knowing what those competencies are, so I find that first the comment that Nishi made about we're not selling a product, we're selling a service that's a bit more difficult to quantify and to measure the impact of. And I've also seen here now in the text comment, for instance, Nikita's comments there about, the perception that the quality of service delivery is so bad that it doesn't actually make any difference, so those are the kind of things as an industry that we are clearly having to address. And perhaps this framework that we are now kind of reflecting on is something that can contribute towards that. So I see there that about half of us, close to half of us, are saying yes, it's absolutely applicable, and about a third saying yes, it's applicable to a degree. It's kind of less than a quarter that's a bit more pessimistic about the framework. So that's good to see. So perhaps this competencies framework, Nishi, is something that can really be taken forward into the discussion, and also to influence the decision making, because government will have a policy on this. So I'm not sure, Nishi, you don't have to reply now, but perhaps it is something for us to talk about, is how such a framework can influence policy in the end, and how professional bodies like IBASA can play into that space too. But it's great to see that most people in the room at least are very positive about that framework. There's still some voting happening, but maybe we can close it soon. It is clear that most people are saying it's absolutely applicable. 43% it stands on now. Let's end the poll, then we can share the result.
Yes.
And
I'm
then
just checking on Facebook.
about a third saying yes, it's applicable to a fair degree, and about 18% say it is somewhat applicable, and there's only 6% that are saying no.
Interesting, great. And I think Lucas Ngosi says, how do we get the competency framework document?
Nishi, is that something that you can answer? Is how accessible is what IBASA is using as a framework for people to understand better?
I'm sure this is something we can share, Christoph. We do have our chairman present with us this afternoon as well, but I'm sure it's a link that can be shared.
Okay, so Tumelo will cover that.
So by the way, just a reminder that at the end of today, after the CPD event, we talk a bit about what IBASA is doing and so on too.
Great, thanks. And anyone on Facebook, please feel free to share your thoughts as well, because then it would be great to add you in that discussion. Great, thank you, Christoph. All right, and I do know maybe Koenie will respond later to one of the questions that you said you would like to respond to Bren Williams' question on,
Yes, sure.
yeah. Okay, I haven't forgotten you there. And Bren, we haven't forgotten you either. Okay, and that takes us to our last panelists for the day. And that is Carl Lottering, and he will share his view on the competent support practitioner and can contribute to the impact of small business development, the ecosystem. In addition of being the CEO of the Office of the South African Small Medium Enterprise Federation and holding various positions of directorship and management positions, he served in the South African Council of Australia and the USA. Carl, please welcome. I hope you were able to connect with us and you're ready there. Hello.
Hello. Can you
Awesome.
hear me?
I hear you and I see your lovely face. Welcome.
Oh, and can you, I've got something up here called polls. Can I get rid of it?
Yes.
There we go.
Perfect.
Good afternoon, everybody. I would just like to say, to start saying how important the job of business advisors are. And my message, which I'm going to provide now, will be about that. Secondly, I wanted to say that all three speakers seem to use circular metaphors to explain what is happening. And that's very encouraging, that you're never alone, you're part of a great circle of influence. And so this is what I have to say. Advisory practitioners should be encouraged today as we move to Alert 1. And although the employed-centered plan is not yet available, Feral Haffordgy of the Daily Maverick reports the following from a seen copy of this plan. You remember the president has promised us. And in this plan, she's picked up a few things. She's picked up that the plan speaks of the enablers of growth agreed to a supportive SME ecosystem. Big stimulus leg of the plan is localized manufacturing. Pledges from the government to reduce red tape and simplifying the PPP regulation. This makes advisory very important, especially in the post-COVID economic recovery plan. Business support practitioners are the vitamins feeding the living system we call the entrepreneurial ecosystem. It's the key role of practitioners in unlocking the potential of small and entrepreneurial businesses. The role of practitioners should not be undervalued. Operating in a full support ecosystem, where the various elements of the system should be aligned in creating an environment where entrepreneurs and small business owners can create thriving companies. Let us refresh our memory about this vital dynamic system called the ecosystem. And Carol will probably show you the screen now. There's the ecosystem. And I just want you to, as you watch, as I speak, it's important to note that the shape is circular, indication of a circular movement. All the players in the circle impact on the entrepreneur at the center. Note also the advisors and mentors are in the middle of the group. Right at the bottom of the circle, you might see it, but it's in the middle of the group, suggesting a link between the external factors and the internal factors affecting SMEs. Now, when we correlate agreement at NEDLAC, which I referred to in opening, with the entrepreneurial ecosystem in the slide, we see the importance of mentors and advisors and support systems. And I can't find anybody who will disagree with that. Yet we are finding that SMEs resist taking on the support. You'll also note common language, supportive SME ecosystem in the plan, and support systems in the ecosystems slide. The goal must be support for SME. SASMEF has long called for the National Small Business Support System. This is now acknowledged in the academic literature and by the growth-centered plan. SME via a companion. I like to think of the advisor as a companion. Receives the best of the advisor's experience and understanding of the education and training and human capital and workforce and global markets in order to deal with the external environment. And the external environment consists of government policy, which you can do blow all about really, regulatory framework, funding and finance and culture. And to be able to provide SMEs this level of support, advisors need to adopt standards of professionalism that will enable them to play this vital role. It goes without saying that advisors should have their own mentors, advisors and support system. Ecosystems are mutually accountable and collaborative, so the players feed off each other, and where there is a weak link, they can mutually be strengthened within the supportive system. SME then become more credible in dealing with customers. I really support the fact that no money must be given to SMEs unless they have an advisor. We get nowhere with just money being dished out. The result must be sustainable, profitable SME. Only then can SME take the contribution to the growth of wealth and jobs, or as it's been called these days, national well-being. And so I hope you see the importance that I attach to organizations like IBASA for improving the standards. On a personal note, I have been a banker, and I have seen business plans brought to me for which I had to sign a check for 8,000 or 9,000 rand because the SME didn't have the money. And then you look at the damn business plan, it's nowhere near what the business is about. And on that note, can I wish IBASA well, and thank you all for listening to me.
Wow, thank you very much, Carl. Sure, time is flying. Hey, Christoph, how are we doing there?
Yeah, it is, Tobeka. Thanks, Carl, for reminding us also how things fit together and that we are part of a much bigger ecosystem playing out there. So we clearly need to fix the things that we have influence over, but there may be more at play too that we need to play into. And it's good to see that part of the recovery plan actually refers to the ecosystem. So maybe, Tobeka, I'm not sure are we moving to more for open discussion because we've got some questions, and perhaps all the panelists can switch on their cameras and sound so that we can all reflect together. And if we can go to gallery view, then we can all see each other too.
And I think at this point we can see if Koenie would like to respond now, and then as everyone goes on, we can go through the panelists as well.
Great, and I think we must just, I think maybe when we started off, we neglected to recognize Tumelo, so he's been mentioned. We will be talking about IBASA stuff, Tumelo, just now, but you're welcome to join the discussion here as well. Tumelo Tshotsetsi is the chairperson of the IBASA board. He's in the room with us too. So I think, Tobeka, I refer to you. You've got some questions there that were in the Q&A lined up.
Yes, Christopher. Thanks for that, Tumelo. And Tobeka. Yes, the question around why are we recommending the same status where there are obviously different levels of business advisory practitioners. Look, what it comes down to is the regulation and the control of quality, and to ensure that practitioners are actually delivering services to the clients that are worth the paper it's written on. There are various bodies within industry. There are various disciplines within the industry, but we need to look at where we are focusing on now. And yes, people are also commenting on the question that I've seen that business advisory services is not just about business plans. Correct. But we need to ensure that there is control. Where there is no control, you have a number of things going wrong. We need this process to be entrenched in such a way that people understand that they have somewhere where they can account to. If people are not held accountable, they tend to lose their way. So we need to have bodies where there is control, there is regulation, so that people understand that the services that they deliver is services that are assisting people in growing their businesses, in growing their livelihoods. So those people depend upon the service that they receive from the business advisor. And if that is not regulated, business advisors can go at a tangent and deliver whatever they want to deliver. And if they're not held accountable, there is no control in the system. You know, in every society, we have laws and we have control. And it's nothing different from the business advisory ecosystem. Within the ecosystem, we need to have controls so that people understand that if they've done something wrong, they are going to be held accountable for that. And there is controls to regulate everything around them. Thank you.
Right.
Now, did you see Tuso's comment, Koenie, in the chat? Tuso said, I love Tuso. I haven't met Tuso, we haven't met, but I think I'm going to love you. Tuso said, regulate, not dictate. So perhaps we can go around the table and just talk about that a bit, that balance, you know, sort of that clearly there's some controls, some regulation, some form of quality assurance necessary in the industry. But as Tuso says, if it's going to be dictatorial, it's probably not going to work. So where's that right balance? You know, sort of. So, and I put that question to everyone in the room. You know, sort of including those that are not able to have a voice in speaking, but you've got your fingers to type with. So how do we find that balance in terms of regulation so that, as Tuso say, it doesn't become dictating? So Carl, Nishi, you want to give a stab at that one?
Yeah, I'd like to. You know, I think the important focus should be, let's get a baseline to work from. Let's get agreement around the table from all the major stakeholders, including us as advisors ourselves, to say, let's agree that in order to regulate the quality of the service that we provide, these are the elements that should be included. Yeah. It doesn't have to be, you know, overbearing, dictatorial and all the rest of it to start with, but I think if we are really serious about regulating the industry and eradicating all the fly-by-nights that we talk about, which really do exist, we need to have a baseline as a standard to say, look, this is the standard and we all in and we agree to comply with it. And then as with any new thing, you know, you have to keep tweaking it, amending it to make sure that it's also relevant to meet the needs of all the users.
Standards is an important one, and Koenie, I heard you speak about it quite a bit. I wonder if you could maybe give us an example or so of what those standards, those SAB standards are about. Perhaps it's new for a lot of people in the room. So what do we need to learn about standards, and what is this SABS 17024 thing about?
The SABS 20700. 10270. Yeah. Look, the standards, Christoph, is that what we are trying to achieve is to ensure that, first and foremost, you know, it is important that anybody that gets a project needs to understand the project. If you are given a client to go and consult with to develop a business plan, to do a quality management system, you know, to do training, whatever, you need to understand the needs of the client. Hence, you need to do a gap analysis or an assessment or whatever you want to call it, so that within those standards, you will be able to deal with the issues at hand and saying to the client that, look, these are your concerns, this is the reality in the industry, and this is how you need to deal with this. So the standards are there to guide, to say, in this areas, this is what you need to look at. In this areas, this is how far you can go. And in this area, these are the parameters. It's just to put parameters in place so that people know. You know, it's like when you go and you take your vehicle to a garage and you want to inflate your tires. There is a standard. The standard says for driving with a vehicle that's filled with 4 people or 5 people, you need to pressure your tires to maybe, let's say, 200 kilopascals, okay? If you go and make it 300 kilopascals, you can imagine the uncomfort that those passengers will experience when the car drives, because it'll be hopping. So, and the same applies to when the tires are too flat. You know, so the standard is there not just to regulate, but to assist in ensuring that the service that we deliver is meant to assist the people that it's given to. And yes, to speak to earlier to what Nkosi was saying. Yes, Christopher.
Now proceed.
I was saying, trying to speak to what Nkosi was saying. The intention is not to dictate. The intention is to say these are the standards. We want to control what is happening in a manner that will be beneficial to both sides, the provider as well as the receiver of the services.
Yeah, so we've had, what I wanted to say is we've had some comments in the text chat, you know, Brennan, for instance, talking about appropriate rating, you know, sort of, so he refers to the construction industry with that has a rating system. And the status of the bodies that actually does that rating. Rick is in the text chat referring to his experience in the education sector, where it actually becomes so burdensome and perhaps even not relevant regulations. You know, sort of. So, Carl, I see your thoughts there around the appropriateness of government officials deciding what that regulation should look like, and Carl, your view, how do we make, if regulation is something that is going to happen, how do we make sure that it's appropriate? You have to unmute, Carl, otherwise we can't hear you. We can't hear you yet. Just click the icon with the microphone. So while Carl is unmuting, Tumelo, I was wondering, you know, sort of whether you also may have a perspective on how professional bodies and others in the field can influence government policy in this regard, you know, sort of what the role is. But let's first see if we can get Carl. Carl, you just need to click that unmute button. We can't hear you. On the bottom of your screen, of the Zoom screen, there's a button that says mute, unmute. Looks like a microphone. Still looking for it.
On the left, yeah.
Left bottom corner. Let's go to Tumelo so long, you know, sort of, maybe Carl, you can help Carl there in the background if it's possible at all to unmute. Tumelo, I don't necessarily want to put you on the spot here in terms of what the professionals body should not do, but what is the role of the professional body in this regard, you know, sort of, and can it influence the policies so that it stays appropriate from the perspective of the professionals?
Yes, hi, Christoph. I hope you can hear me. Am I audible?
We can hear you.
No, thank you. Yes, of course, IBASA is a professional body. We've been at the forefront of the efforts to professionalize the business advising space. And I think to the greater extent, the role of professional bodies should be also to lobby. And what we've done as IBASA was to participate in the process that was undertaken through Seda, you know, to solicit comment in the process of looking at regulating the ecosystem, and we've even participated, I think, on their technical task team to make sure that the voices of business advisors in general and also other practitioners and the ecosystem are heard and are taken into account. And we continue to do that going forward, Christoph and other participants. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. So if we have ideas that can be shared, we can share it through IBASA. Are we winning the Carl? Can you press the mute button now? Not yet.
We're not winning. His screen is frozen.
Perhaps, Carl, we would really love to have that perspective. So if you must restart, close Zoom and come back into the room, let's do it that way. Or restart your computer and then we'll find you back here. So I'm not sure, Nishi, if you've got a perspective on that one, sort of about how we make, if there is going to be regulation, how do we make sure? So I see there's some comments about measuring the analogy of the Koenie, you started something here now around the pressure in your tires. So I know if you go to the Galagadi, you must deflate your tire which would never work on any other road surface, sort of because otherwise you kill the road there. And I think the comment there is that if you don't have appropriate measures, you may be measuring the wrong stuff and forcing people to use the wrong implements. Actually, that's not conducive for a situation that's different. So it could be very scary if bureaucrats sit somewhere and think this is the right measure, the right way to regulate, the right requirement to put into place, but in fact it causes more damage in other situations where they didn't think of. So I'm not sure, Nishi and Koenie, if that puts a spin onto the whole thing of regulation. Of course, the discussion paper is more than this regulation, so maybe we can talk a bit about the other issues too if regulation is kind of exhausted. Can we close the discussion on regulation, or is there more comments to come?
Carl, sorry, Christopher. I think yes, I understand what Brandon is saying, but you need to understand that that is why as Seda we are driving this process of the regulation. We believe that this is not solely the responsibility of government. We, in the practice, needs to be involved in this process so that we can give guidance, and credence at the end of the day to whatever regulations government will be putting in place. If you put a standard on something and the person who's busy developing and putting the standard hasn't got a clue of what he or she is dealing with, it can create problems. Hence, we are saying the practitioners, these are the people that needs to be involved, and the discussion paper is going to those lens to say, let's everybody get involved so that we guide one another, so that we ensure at the end of the day that the quality is based on practical solutions that is out there in the industry. You can't, for example, expect somebody who is a teacher in primary school to come and develop a standard for a quality management system, and yet he doesn't understand how the system works. It's logic. So we want people not to shy away or stay away from these processes, but to put up their hands and say, here I am, I'm available, and I'm prepared to come and share my knowledge and my expertise. And that's what this process is all about. We are putting it out there, and we want people to come in and share their expertise. We have business advisor levels within Seda, and we realize that our business advisor levels and the levels within IBASA, they are not really the same, but they are complementing each other. So, this is in this process that we try to say, let's compare apples with apples. Let's make this industry workable. Let's share ideas and practice experiences and so on.
Right, thanks, Koenie. Do we have time for one last one?
Yes, a couple of things, yes. I think it's in line with what Koenie was saying in a way. Someone on Facebook was asking, Sean, how does one become a business advisor? And it also kind of connects with what Rick is asking, as long as the process is truly consultative and not, prescriptive. So how do we make it consultative? And how does someone first become a business advice officer? And then how does Seda and IBASA allow it to be consultative as individuals or potential business advice officers?
Yeah. So there's a process, if Koenie, correct me if I'm wrong, or Tumelo, you know, sort of you guys may know better than I in terms of policies coming and so on. Maybe we can end off on that note, you know, sort of just where things are going in terms of the discussion from here and how people can still give input. But can we quickly look at Lucas's question before we do so, Tobeka? Lucas is saying he knows people with university papers which are esteemed, but in terms of practical competencies, they're outsmarted by those without the papers. So there's kind of like, and I think that's kind of, as a practitioner myself, I kind of agree with that, the qualifications that I have or don't have is not really what puts me into a position to be a good business advisor. You know, it's I've run my own business, I've built up my own business, I've learned much more in doing that than I have from completing any qualification. So how do we tackle that one, Nishi, in terms of the competencies framework? Because probably if that's true, we can't just say you need to have a degree in something and then you're going to be qualified as a business advisor. So can we tackle that one quickly, and then we can perhaps, Tobeka, if it's okay, then we can start wrap up.
Yeah, sure, Christoph. And I couldn't agree more myself. And I think a lot of other professions are starting to see that disconnect a little bit, where you've got the qualification, but you're lacking with the exposure and the experience. And I think a marrying of the two is very important. And that's what I try to highlight in my presentation, that with the IBASA competency framework, we try to marry both. We don't discard the one in favor of the other, but we're saying you need both at different levels and degrees, and that also determines how far and how high you climb on the grading system. So definitely there's a need for both, and they have their place.
And maybe just to add to that discussion, Christoph, so what we've been doing at IBASA in the recent past, since we had developed this competency framework, where we have engaged tertiary institutions and business schools that are offering qualifications that are inclined towards business advice and business services in general, assisting businesses. And the aim there is to see if there's a need to, in fact, there is a need that has been identified to align what we seek to see as a fully developed business advisor or a practitioner in the ecosystem with the kind of qualifications that somebody would come out with from an educational institution. And also if there's a need to develop a new qualification, and maybe more as a career path that somebody can actually take up, whether it's an undergrad or even at a postgrad level, to become a fully competent business advisor. So that is some of the initiatives we've been undertaking as far as our competency framework is concerned. Thank you.
Great. All right.
Hello?
We have callback.
I agree. I think Rick, Professor Rick said it all. Whoever adjudicates the standards and is you mustn't leave it to civil servants. That is a no-no. It's not their job. They're not trained for it. It's got to be people from your organization, together with academia, and together with those who practice it. They must form the adjudication team, and they must have a set of standards that they're looking at too. It's got to be a collaborative. One person, and definitely no to civil servants. Their job is quite different.
Sorry, Koenie. But you've got enough practitioners in the room here today to be part of your team, you know, sort of. So as long as you guys drive the process, the rest of us can contribute. So maybe, Tobeka, can we go around the table and maybe just have final comments, because we need to be respectful of time too, and Milo still wants to do something around the IBASA stuff. Maybe I can shoot first. I found my new hero, who's called Tuso. Tuso, thank you very much. Regulate, not dictate.
Agree.
Thank you. Go ahead, Koenie. You're next to Christoph.
Thanks, Tobeka. Yes, I would like to agree with all the speakers and the comments and irony is that, as I mentioned, we don't want government to be in control of this process. We as practitioners, we have to be the people who are driving the process and ensuring at the end of the day that what we want is really what's contained in this regulatory processes. Because I've seen a number of questions where one was saying, if you have a person with a degree, but somebody with practical experience, it's much more inclined to give a better job. Yes, that's true. A recognition of prior learning is very, very, very important. It's not all about the piece of paper that you have. Some of us go to a course, we memorize everything that we learn and we put it down on paper, we get a pass degree or a pass mark and so on, but we cannot implement that. So it's very important that what we do going forward, we hold each other's hand, let us ride the waves of change together as practitioners.
Great, thank you. Nishi, and then after Nishi, Carl.
I think it's been a very, very informative session indeed, and the input has been very encouraging to see that if there's one thing we all seem to agree on is the need to regulate the industry and the need to establish standards that we will all conform to. And I'm very hopeful that we'll keep the discussion going and that we'll eventually reach that goal of regulating the industry. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Nishi. Carl?
Hello, you want me?
Carl, you loud and clear.
Am I? I want to say thank you very much, and I like the theme of collaboration. I think specialists, in my view, are important, but they must not dominate. And IBASA for itself must be an ecosystem, drawing on their connections, connections outward and in. We can't think of one ecosystem. Ecosystems are at different levels, operating all at the same time, something like the back of your watch. And the work that IBASA is doing is one of those cogs that are moving silently all the time behind, or like your computer, what's happening behind the screen that I never understand. That's very important to note. So as long as there's no dictator or the uber or alles, a person that's terribly important above everybody else, please keep to collaboration. We say in our definition of small business is the democratization of opportunity. We can say,
wow.
So we can say the same of every activity.
Great. Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Carl. And before I give off to Dumelo, the chairperson of IBASA, I would also just like to share in the chat, and I'll put on the Facebook to get some feedback on what the session was like today. And I put some questions directly to Dumelo that I'm sure he'll cover in his description on what is next and who IBASA is. Thank you, Dumelo.
Okay, thanks, Tobeka and colleagues. Firstly, I'd like to really thank everyone for their input. Astounding it has been, and very helpful for IBASA to continue to do its very important work in the ecosystem. So maybe before I give more information admin-wise for IBASA, let me just indicate that the competency framework is continuously developing a platform. So we continue to take input and advice, and also take into account the changing environment, as we know, that we operate in, to ensure that it talks to the needs of the stakeholders on the ground. And to that extent, you will find that the way it is framed currently, it is actually being used by corporate and other state agents to do what you call a skills gap assessment. So the skills gap assessment helps to craft a career path for those practitioners involved in the ecosystem, and to help them progress through the different designations and ratings that are currently being provided by IBASA. So it's very encouraging, and thank you everyone for your inputs. We will certainly take all your advice and inputs into account going forward at IBASA, and ensure that we are what is the right word? We are able to respond to your needs as the ecosystem. And I've seen the question about whether the grading will change for those who are already IBASA members. Not necessarily. There is no one who will be left out, who will suddenly not qualify to be an IBASA member. As you can see on that framework that was presented by my colleague Nishi, that there's actually additional levels and professional designations that we have added on our platform, which accommodates even those who are still studying, students who are studying through universities and so forth, and business schools, and they would like to become fully qualified business advisors. So we actually continuously, advancing and expanding our offering to the ecosystem. So nobody will be left out, colleagues, and we welcome all of you. So there's information available on how you can get in touch with IBASA, primarily on our website or through our website, ibasa.org.za, and there you will learn more about our membership and other services that we provide, the webinars, including today's webinar, which will be downloaded on our platform. So if you missed part of it, you'll be able to access it on our website. We are also available on Twitter, on Facebook, and also LinkedIn. So please do follow us as we continually share more information on business advisory. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Dumelo, for sharing that. And thank you to all our lovely panelists for joining us, and to all the participants who are here today. Thank you, everybody. And I would like to let you know our next webinar, of course, will be on the 15th of October, 2020, which is in about a month's time. And our topic for that day will be practical considerations in conducting financial analysis of small business client performance. So if you believe if you believe this is for you, feel free to join us, and please share it with your own networks of your colleagues and friends and families. And I hope you all have a great day, a safe time, and let's all be safe during these times. And thank you everybody for the discussions, and we look forward to your feedback. Christoph, thank you very much for holding the space as well and keeping our eye open on the discussions. And Carl for that awesome work in the background. And Carl, thank you for being here, as well as Nishi and Koenie. Be safe across the African continent.
Thanks to Beka for keeping us on track. And yeah, have a good afternoon, everyone. See you soon.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. See you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.